Hello Frizzle friends! Today I am on the quest to find a new favorite author, and I'm going to be reading books from 3 favorite author candidates. Now this project all got started when I made a formula to score every author I'd ever read from. So the favorite author formula goes like this. An author needs to get a score of 1 or higher. This is like getting a score of 100%. And then each book I've read from them contributes to their points. A 5-star book gets that author a 1/3 of a point. So if I read 3 books from an author and they were all 5 stars, favorite author status, they've reached 100%. A 4-star book gives that author an 1/8 of a point. But if I read a 3-star book from that author, it's a -15th of a point. So if, for example, they had already achieved a score of 1 in favorite author status, and then I read 15 3-star books from them, they're now back down to 0. A 2-star book brings a -1/8 of a point, and a 1-star book brings a -1/3 of a point. So I scored every single author I've ever read from using this formula, and I got a list of favorite authors. There's not that many of them, here is all of them. But what there is a lot more of are authors that are right on the cusp of becoming favorite author status, that have a score that's just below a 1. So I've taken the group of authors that are all 1 5-star away from becoming favorite authors, and these are our candidates for favorite authorship. And it is out of that pool of authors that I'm reading books from today. So if there's any 5 stars in this video, they become favorite authors. The authors I'm reading from today are Marissa Meyer, Richard Kadrey, which was voted on by my patrons, and Dan Wells, also from a vote from my patrons. So I'm really excited to see how these go. These are all authors that I already love, and I would be so happy if I found a 5-star from them and they could join the ranks of favorite authors. Let's see. So the author up is Marissa Meyer. I have read 5 books before from Marissa Meyer. Here's the star rating distribution, and that brings her to a score of 0.87. So all we need is a 5-star. In my past reading of Marissa Meyer books, I've enjoyed her more recent works, like the Renegade series, those are the 5 stars, much more than her past works like the Lunar Chronicles, which are like the 3 stars. So I decided that what better than to pick up her most recent release, which seems to be a young adult contemporary rom-com called With a Little Luck. And at this point, I am 15% into it. We are following a teenage boy named Jude. Jude is really into making art, though he's very shy about sharing it. Dungeons and Dragons, where he is running a campaign for his friends, and a girl at school named Maya. But he's never really talked with Maya before. Who I can see obviously is going to be our endgame love interest here is his friend named Ari. And it's been implied that she has a big crush on him, and that he has a crush on her but hasn't quite put it together yet. The plot has started kicking off when our protagonist Jude finds a dice, a very pretty d20, and it seems to be very magical good luck charm, where now that he has it in his pocket, everything is going ridiculously well. This book so far has had several conversations about probability and how even if something is very, very improbable doesn't mean that it necessarily is impossible. So I'm not quite sure if the book is going to go the route of it was just random chance that he happened to be really lucky once he found this good luck charm, or like this good luck charm is actually magic. But it is very D&D coded. That fine line between relying on probability and the superstition that comes out of it. I didn't know when I picked this book With a Little Luck that it would be so into the D&D world. And if I had known that going in, I would have been even more excited about this book. My hopes for this book right now are so high because I love Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I not only love Dungeons and Dragons, I love a Dungeons and Dragons love story because that's my love story. Years ago, I joined a Dungeons and Dragons group which already had Seth in it. We were friends for years, just getting to know each other through Dungeons and Dragons, started dating, and now we're married. So I am so pumped and excited and over the moon that I have accidentally found a Dungeons and Dragons rom-com by a potential favorite author. Like, the potential of this book is so high, and I'm so excited to see what it does with these plot lines. But I do have some complaints, minor and more structural major, even with what I've read so far in the book. For example, Jude's Dungeons and Dragons group is like 6 guys. Excuse me, You could have put his friend Ari, who will become a love interest by the end of the book, in that group with him. Why not? The stereotype is that Dungeons and Dragons is such a male nerd activity, but in my experience, if any of those groups make any effort to invite women along, they will come because it's a gender neutral activity and everyone loves it. So it feels so icky that this book is reinforcing the stereotype that D&D is such a male activity, when like it could have been so easy for them to make some of those characters girls. Okay, so that's the little nitpick that like bothered me a little bit, but it's not gonna make the book lose any points. What is making the book lose some points is that we don't have a source of conflict yet. I'm interested in all the topics, but the book is boring. There's nothing at stake. We haven't really set up any big plots in motion. It's just like day in the life. Oh look, I found a good luck charm. And I would totally love to get this book also from her perspective, the best friend Ari. I love when my romance novels are dual perspective. It seems like it's never gonna happen. And it feels like this book is going to shift more into focusing on Jude's personal development than on the romance. We'll see how that plays out. I think I could be happy either way as long as it's done well. My predicted rating for this book would be 4 stars right now. It's not giving that 5-star energy for the complaints I just gave, but it is giving that 4-star energy, and it could definitely reach 5 stars by the end. I'm invested and excited, and I am absolutely delighted that I accidentally found a Dungeons and Dragons themed friends to lovers rom-com, because that's my love story. I'm 59% into With a Little Luck. And this book is certainly taking its time finding its feet, and I'm not just starting, I am currently annoyed with it. The plot of this book is that we have Jude, and he has a crush on the popular girl named Maya. And he also has a best friend named Ari, who is on the book cover. And through the middle of the book, he asked Maya, the popular girl, out. She said yes. They had a fantastic date. They had another fantastic date. Maya asked to join his D&D group. She has, and she's loving it. And this is certainly not where I was expecting the book to go. So that intrigues me. But the downfall is that this book doesn't really have any conflict. He's having a great time dating Maya. She's having a great time dating him. They're super compatible. And the only conflict of the book is because I, the reader, know that Ari's on the cover, I know that she is the endgame girl. And that's the only bit of conflict that this book has served up. There isn't any internal conflict for Jude. There isn't any external conflict. Everything's going smooth sailing. It's just this little ghost in the background being like, but what about the other girl? And I feel like this conflict could be compelling if it was brought to the forefront more, if we had more scenes of like Ari in the book being awesome, and maybe like Jude could wish that he had that kind of relationship with Maya, the popular girl. But Ari, his childhood friend, has barely been in the book. She was there at the beginning for like a scene or two, and she's dropped in here and there, but never enough for me to really feel the chemistry between them at all. The only thing fueling the conflict is that we know that she has a crush on him and that she's on the front cover of the book, which is such a weak conflict, and it's just zapping my enjoyment of this book because I'm not interested in what's going to happen because nothing is happening. Now, I have just gotten to the part of the book, remember I'm like 59% in, where Jude is starting to realize that maybe he has feelings for his childhood friend, Ari. And it feels like too little too late, especially because of how little of Ari we've gotten in the book. Like, I don't ship them together. I don't care. And if he had had this realization like 200 pages ago, then I probably would have been invested in it. But by now, less. What's been going on in the plot is just Jude and Maya getting to know each other. Jude realizing that he's been putting her on a pedestal and getting to know the real her and actually really liking the real her. And it was so heavy-handed. He literally thought to himself like several times, oh wait, I'm putting her on a pedestal. I should stop doing that. And it was just felt like I was being slapped in the face by the message. And despite him having this obvious weakness of putting his crush on this pedestal, he never actually had any setbacks or downsides because of it. Everything was smooth sailing, the relationship is progressing well. Like, even though that this was his weakness, it didn't matter to the plot. And so who cares? The D&D references continue to be all over the place. He's always talking about rolling dice and they're playing D&D together. And as a D&D lover, I like it. It's starting to get a little annoying with how much it is, and I think it's just me being annoyed with this book as a whole. It's bleeding through into my feelings about that. And I also think that like Jude just doesn't make the most compelling protagonist because he's so passive. he leaves so many of his decisions up to luck, and he doesn't really do much. He just lets people pull him along to things. And I get that this is like his personality, that like he's too shy and that's why he never asked out the girl of his dreams, but it just makes it hard to enjoy following him when even after he's asked out the girl of his dreams, we don't really follow him continuing to do things like that. It's just like one and done, and now he's waiting around for other people to do things to him instead of him being an active protagonist in the story. So, what's my predicted rating for this book here at 59%? 3 stars? I'm along for the ride and I'm enjoying it just enough to keep reading. I'm liking it. But I have so many complaints, and it's just now that this book is starting to develop a conflict, so we'll see where it goes. If it's developed well, maybe the star rating will go up. So I finished with a little luck. All I have is more complaints for it. Jude, our protagonist, finally asks out his childhood friend on accident. Over and over in the ending portion of this book, he experienced many setbacks with his love life, and every single time, he would just kind of sit back and wait until something happened. He wouldn't actually try to solve the setbacks. He's like such lacking in main character active protagonist with agency energy. I guess this is part of the discussion of the larger video of like what makes a favorite author, and like I've loved so many books by Marissa Meyer and I'm just bamboozled, like how can an author that I know is so talented make a book that is so fundamentally flawed in its structure and the lack of decisions that the protagonist makes? Whenever he got a setback, he would just wallow in it until something else happened to him. There was no plan, there was no energy, there was nothing for me to root for at any point in this book. Now eventually, he did get around to making some big grand gesture moment, and this book ends as most romance books do. But even that big grand gesture was only like 50% his doing and 50% his friends pushing it on him. So, with a little luck, this fun teenage rom-com with a little bit of luck magic in it and a whole lot of boring, conflictless, no tensions, annoying protagonist, I'm gonna give 3 stars. It was fine, and I'm sure there are many people who will love it, but I am not one of those people because I need a little bit more stakes and internal conflict and external conflict in my books in order to be invested. So that puts Marissa Meyer, who started out this video at 87% favorite author score, she gets bumped down to 80 with this 3-star added upon. But that still makes her 1 5-star away from favorite author status, so sometime in the future when I'm doing another round of trying to find a new favorite author, I think I will include another one of her books and we can see. So if you have a favorite Marissa Meyer book, please do drop it in the comments. Also, can I just say I hate this cover? It's so bland monochrome. Also, this book is so D&D themed, and then this cover makes it seem like it's beach sunset themed, which it is 0% beach sunset and like 70% D&D and 30% music. So I got the 30% music, but like it doesn't represent the book and I think it's ugly. The next favorite author candidate is Richard Kadrey. I have read 12 books from this author. Here is the star distribution. And these are all in the same series, which is the Sandman Slim series, and as you can see, I loved most of the books of the series. Some of them were flops, but I truly feel like so many books from this author are really smart in having character development at the forefront and everything in the plot kind of revolving around that, and really taking the time to develop interesting and deep themes surrounding all that. Richard Kadrey's score right now is an 81%. So 1 more 5-star and he gets favorite author status. So I decided to pick up Butcherbird, and right now I am 26% in. This book follows a man named Spider who lives in San Francisco. He's a tattoo artist and he loves getting tattoos himself as well. He'll get just any symbol, slap it on his body. This backfires pretty quickly when one of the symbols he's put on his body is like a demonic symbol, and it actually summons a demon who comes to attack him. He's saved just in the nick of time by a magical ninja lady, and after this experience, his eyes are suddenly opened to the magical world and he can see the demons crawling the streets. And so he decides to go looking for the ninja lady who saved him to see if she can explain a little bit more and help him out in this transition period of his life. I am not loving this book. The protagonist doesn't feel propulsive. He doesn't really feel like he has any goals or wants. He's just walking around hoping that he finds the girl he's looking for. It very much feels like he doesn't know what to do and he doesn't care about what to do and that everything in his life is just kind of take it or leave it at this point. He's just like accidentally stumbling into trouble repeatedly, but it doesn't feel like there's any tracks that he's moving on. I don't know, if I were to give a complete summary of everything he wants out of life right now, he wants to have sex with the ninja lady. That's about the end of the list, and it's not compelling. There's the very beginning right now of a plot where one of his best friends is in trouble with these organ harvester demon people, and he wants to help her get out of that. But I'm not finding that super compelling so far because it hasn't really gone anywhere. The tone of this book is very much like, wow, isn't this world neat? There's all these demons. And then it like goes on a several page rant about a movie from 1943 that I don't care about and isn't plot relevant. It feels so self-indulgent where it's focusing on details of like gore and like hipness of the culture, but not details on like character development or wants or goals or anything like that. Like, this book isn't trying to craft a good story, it's just trying to give you all of the vibes of this tattooist in San Francisco encountering demons. And I think the crux of what I'm really not enjoying about this book is it doesn't really have any internal conflict. Like, the character doesn't want anything, isn't that disappointed that suddenly his life is turned upside down. It just feels so flat and like there's nothing there, which is such a contrast to how I feel about the books from this author that I've loved before, which I felt like were so strong because it all revolved around internal conflict, and then this book has none. This book is very reveling in its goriness. Like, the book opens with a discussion of what are the worst, most gruesome ways to die, and it really sets the tone from the get-go there. And I knew that I was getting myself into that because that's how this author's other books were, but I felt like in the other books that gory, rough around the edges tone always served a purpose, you know, tying in to the character arc and the internal conflict that I love so much. But here, not really. So, it is with great sadness that I will announce that I am giving up on this book. I'm DNFing at 26% because I'm just not interested where this story is going, and I don't have any hope that it'll get any better. So I'm not going to waste my time reading the rest of it. And I'm going to give Butcher Bird 2 stars, which now puts the author at a score of 68%, which is just barely still a favorite author candidate. Still, if the next book I read from this author is 5 stars, he gets the favorite author label, which is kind of amazing. I was looking through his other books to see if there was anything else of his that I wanted to pick up, and not really. Maybe one day if he writes a new book that seems really interesting and gets good reviews, I will pick that up. But for now, I think I'm going to shelve this author and move on to the next one. Our next favorite author candidate is Dan Wells, who is currently sitting at a 68%. I've read 7 books by Dan Wells, 6 of which were in the I Am Not a Serial Killer series, which I gave the books either 5 stars or 3 stars. I also read another book by him, Partials, which I gave 2 stars. He is just on the cusp of being the favorite author candidate, so I wasn't the most jazzed to prioritize him at the beginning of this project, but he won the poll, so here we go. I've decided to pick up Active Memory. This is actually the 3rd in a trilogy, but I decided to start with this one because it had significantly higher ratings than the other one and looked fun. And you know what? I'm 20% in so far, and I gotta hand it to Dan Wells. There's the perfect amount of reestablishing the world and helping me get into it without overly recapping previous books in the series. It feels like the perfect slide into a new story and a great place to jump in. So we are following Marissa, a teenage hacker. It's the future. Everyone's making robots and hacking things all the time. She's got a group of teenage friends who are also hackers and various ne'er-do-wells who in previous books I assume have helped her take down corporations and stuff. This book is also very family focused. We've gotten to know her dad and her sisters and her brothers so far, and it's fun. And the plot of this is also shaping up to be family focused because Marissa's family has a feud with the local gang crime boss family. And this has been going on for all of her life, and she doesn't know why there's this feud in her family. But she's deciding now that it's time for her to get to the bottom of this because the mother of the crime boss family, who everyone has thought has been dead for like a decade, her recently severed hand just showed up at a crime scene. So things are starting to heat up, and this is sparking the feud between the families. Even more trickily, Marissa's older brother runs a gang, and his gang has been implicated in the crime scene of the severed hand. So he might be involved in all this. And you know, so far, I'm kind of loving it. It's establishing the sci-fi world really well, easing me into what kind of technology. There's a lot of discussion so far about everyone has a AI assistant brain chip, except the criminals who want to stay offline, so their actions are constantly recorded for proof of their misdeeds. So there's been discussions about the privilege of having this and also the people who choose not to, and how this influences how everyone interacts with the world. I'm also very intrigued of where this family feud plotline is going to go and what it's going to mean personally to our protagonist as she finds out what secrets her family might have been keeping and what bad deeds they might have done in the past. My predicted rating for this book, I'm gonna say 4 stars, which is very good because that would make it the best book of the video so far. And it does feel like the best book of the video so far. I'm hoping for a 5-star because then I get a new favorite author. But at this point, I am willing to settle for a 4.
Good morning! I am 55% into active memory, and I'm going to tell you about it as I'm making myself some scrumptious breakfast and eating it. We're going the route of fried egg and rice for breakfast today, especially because I've got a new spice blend I'm trying out. So I've got some leftover rice that I've added some soy sauce to, and this, which is a spice blend that I made yesterday. It's inspired by both Filipino and Japanese style spices. Mostly the base is garlic, onion, lemon peel, and ground sesame seeds with some other fun things mixed in like pepper. And I mostly designed it to go well on rice with soy sauce. We'll see how this tastes and maybe make some little adjustments to it. And we've got our rice all heated up, added with some cheese and spices and soy sauce. We throw the mostly cooked but a teensy bit runny egg on top, and that's breakfast.
So I was really excited about active memory at the very beginning, but I'm a little less excited about it now because it doesn't feel like the story has really developed much. It's been entertaining. It's been the perfect pacing. Things have been happening because they've been following up on all these leads. They've been investigating the severed hand lead and the family feud lead. But I think I'm starting to get bored of it because despite them finding new leads and new parts of this puzzle, nothing has challenged our protagonists. Especially, nothing has challenged our protagonist in a new or interesting way. It's just more of the same of, I'm investigating this thing, and she cares about it, but it's not challenging her. Okay, let's do this. First bite. That's really good. I think all that this rice needs is more of it. And maybe a little bit more soy sauce. The flavors in this, the pop of the lemon, the garlic, the onion, it all combines so well. I love it. I think the only thing that I might want to add is some seaweed flakes to it, which could be a lot of fun. I don't know how much flavor it would actually add to the mix. And like any good East Asian mix, it's got some MSG in it too, which does give it a very nice pop. My favorite part of the plot of this book right now is that we've got a side character named Omar. Omar and our protagonist Marissa have a history, some of which is positive, some of which is negative and backstabby. And he is on the other side of this gang war family feud. And he's also in the dark about what's even caused this family feud and wants to get to the bottom of it. So they're working together and exchanging information and helping each other out, but they don't quite trust each other, but also they have crushes on each other. And I ship it, it's fun, it's got some good drama there. And that is the heart of this book that I'm holding on to and hoping that gets developed more. The gang of side characters is good and fun and has continued to develop. I think another thing that I love about this book is how it plays with its world building. It's always bringing in new fun details of this sci-fi world, but it's also never letting them overpower the plot. Like, I am so interested in this augmented reality that they're always living in, how it plays with their culture and how they interact with the world, and you do get to see that in this book, but it's not the point of the book, it's just a fun side thing. One of our side characters is like a practically 24/7 vlogger, and she's got these camera drones that are constantly following her. And that's also very fun and interesting as it brings up discussions of privacy. And how much privacy can you actually have in this world where everyone has a smart device in their brain? Maybe you should just give it all up and become a full-time vlogger for money because privacy is a myth anyway, or do you want to go the other route of some of the other characters that don't even have the smart device? Mostly, it seems to be motivated by then they can get away with more illegal activity, but it's also the pro that they don't have to deal with like pop-up ads in their vision. They don't have to deal with that loss of privacy that comes from it. And I like how this book is bringing up those discussions and having them on the side without overpowering the fun mystery plot that they're solving. I think this book's like target audience and optimal place to read it in would probably be a teenage school classroom and discussing these things, and it also has a fun plot on the side so you won't get bored. The writing is well done, it's accessible, and it's also very bilingual because our main character is Hispanic and there's lots of Spanish sentences mixed in. I have enough Spanish vocabulary that between that and the context of the scene, I've been able to decode most of the sentences. But I think wherever you are on the scale of fluent Spanish speaker to absolutely no Spanish knowledge, the book does a good job of making it a fun experience for you, where it always provides enough context for the Spanish sentences that you can get the gist of what's happening in the scene even if you have no idea what's being said, but it never gives you translations of the sentences and goes overboard for the people who can't understand the sentences already. So, projected rating right now, I'm still going to maintain it at 4 stars, with some conditions. I think it'll be 4 stars if those crushes and that interesting dynamic that's just gotten started so far get some more development, because I'm very invested in that, and that the characters get challenged in new and interesting ways here in the second half of the book. Because if the second half of the book is just plotting mystery and we don't get more development of the love drama, I think I might downgrade it to 3 stars. But if all of that is done exceptionally well, it could get upgraded to 5 stars too. I'm very excited to find out, and I'm loving my experience with the book so far. I finished Active Memory, and let me tell you how it went. Poorly. Remember how at the midway check-in I gave you a list of things that would have to happen for it to maintain its 4-star? There was no development of this romance. And there was no new conflicts developed. It was just like the same note of this book over and over. And at the beginning of this book, I was loving it. It felt like kind of bad video game music where maybe when you first hear the little jingle, it sounds fun. And it's like, yeah, I like this. And then once you've been hearing that jingle on repeat for hours, it gets annoying. That's what this book felt like. I enjoyed the jingle, but an entire book and hours of reading it, boring. And I feel like the linchpin of this was that there wasn't ever internal conflict developed. They were chasing down leads, they were getting into shootouts, they were uncovering secrets about their parents' pasts, and yet I was not hooked because it didn't feel like the character was really being challenged on a personal emotional level. In addition, I didn't feel like all of these action scenes, which the end of the book really hinged on you being invested in, were done well. The blocking was confusing and I couldn't tell where people were or what was happening for a lot of the scenes. Like that part of an action scene where you get hooked and are really excited to see what was happening was never there for me because my main emotion was like, huh? Wait, who is that character again? What is happening? Where are they? So in the end, I'm going to give this 3 stars, which brings Dan Wells' score from a 68% to a 61. And alas, this takes him out of the favorite author candidate pool. Now, that's not to say I'll never read another book by him, but I'm not going to be going out of my way to pick them out. So in this video, we got a 3-star for Marissa Meyer, bringing down her score, but she still maintains favorite author candidacy. A 2-star for Richard Kadrey, bringing down his score, but amazingly, he still maintains favorite author candidacy, and Dan Wells gets a 3, taking him out of the running. Which isn't exactly how I hoped this video would go, but it was still a fun experience to read from these authors again. Stay tuned for in the future, because I most definitely plan on continuing this project with another batch of 3 authors, which I think I'm going to let my patrons vote for me which one's next. I've got a pool of about 11 of them right now, I think, so we've got plenty to choose from. And if you liked watching this video, I recommend you watch this fun book project next.